Testing, one, two, testing, testing. All right, as promised, today we're going to talk about operant conditioning. Um, this is going to be more involved than classical conditioning, but we'll get through it. All right, so with classical conditioning, like I said, we take advantage of a natural reaction our body has, like the dog salivating when they see food, right? Well, that's not exactly what happens when we're going to do operant conditioning, because operant conditioning involves shaping the behavior of whatever it is that you're working on, whether it's an animal or a person, right? We're trying to shape their behavior somehow. And usually this involves rewards, sometimes consequences, right? So B.F. Skinner, again, if we remember him, he was the behaviorist, and he is the ultimate source on operant conditioning. Like we see here, he's the Mac Daddy of operant conditioning. Um, he believed in nurture more than nature. I think it's a combination of both, but he was a nurture guy all the way through. And you might have heard of the Skinner box, and if you haven't, you'll learn about it now. Um, so the Skinner box, guys, is basically what it sounds like, a box. And he would put animals in there, whether it be a pigeon or a mouse or a rat. Uh, you would see the lights on his little thing. See the lights here in his box. They would light up, or maybe we hear a sound coming out of the speaker. Regardless of what it was, there would be something happening, and the mouse or the pigeon had to react. They could push this lever right here and get food as a result coming through the chute if they did it right. If they didn't do it right, though, you can see the electric grid down here. The poor animal would get zapped by Skinner because he's trying to get the animal to do a certain thing that's not natural to them. Like he wants them to press the lever when the lights come on, or you hear a sound through the speaker to get the pellets of food drop down the chute. Now, maybe he wanted them to press it when the red light came on, and if they press it when the blue light came on, he might get zapped. Try to think of it that way, right? So ultimately, what he was trying to do, he was trying to get the mouse or the pigeon to react to certain conditions inside the box. And if he reacted to the right ones, he would get rewarded. If they reacted to the wrong ones, they would get zapped. So this brings us to Edward Thorndike. All right, so what Thorndike did in his experiment was he locked up cats in a box. All right, and whenever they did something that he didn't want, he would put them in an unpleasant situation, um, something that the cats did not like. But if they did something that he did want the cats to keep doing, he would reward that behavior with treats, right? The consequences were always going to be unpleasant. Why? Because um, that's what we need to do, right? And we can't give you good consequences if you do something we do not like, right? So, but you have to keep in mind, right? If the consequences are unpleasant, the stimulus reward connection will weaken. So, in other words, they're not going to react to the reward as much as they would otherwise, right? We call this instrumental learning. Reinforcers. There are two types of reinforcers, guys. Uh, any way you think of these reinforcers, we're going to use reinforcers to encourage a certain behavior, right? Now, we're going to hear about the positive and negative reinforcers. Positive reinforcers, guys, are not necessarily a good thing. All right, well, I shouldn't have said that, right? If you hear the word positive, it doesn't necessarily mean a good thing. A positive reinforcer tends to be a positive reward, right? Something you want. When you're trying to teach your dog to go poop outside, when they take the first step outside the door to get on the porch, you might want to give them a treat so they can associate, hey, well, if they want me to do this, let me keep doing other things, right? And when they go to the grass, you might give them another treat, right? These are what we call positive reinforcers. We're going to give them those reinforcers every time they do something we want, right? Remember, we're trying to shape their behavior. So we want them to associate good things with that behavior. So when we're trying to chain it together, like I said, we're going to start with them stepping on your porch, give them a treat. They go off the porch and step on the first step going down. You might want to give them a treat. They get on the grass, you give them a treat. They start smelling around, you give them another treat. They poop, you give them a treat and you go crazy, right? Oh, what a good little boy, what a good girl, and pet them all like that, right? And they go crazy. Now, they're still animals, right? So they're not going to get it the first time. You have to do this again and again until the animal learns what they have to do. But the good thing is, you don't have to give them as many treats as you did that first time if they're learning, right? So as soon as they start learning, you can start cutting back on the treats, right? So eventually you want to give them a treat only when they poop outside where you want them to, and then eventually you won't give them a treat at all, right? So that's how these positive reinforcers work. Now, a negative reinforcer, this we're taking away something unpleasant, right? Um, you do not you have to go home, right? And eventually you have to do some chores, right? You don't want to do your chores, you don't want to clean your room, you don't want to wash the dishes. um, so you get home, you have to do your chores, but you just got your report card, all A's, you give it to your parents, and they might look at it and reward you by taking away your chores, right? That would be a negative reinforcer. They know you don't want to do your chores. It's part of your thing at home, though, right? But you did something they really like. You got all A's, and they rewarded you by taking away your chores, right? Think of this also like when you take a Tylenol because you have a headache. What's the Tylenol doing? It's taking away the headache, right? You're taking away something unpleasant. That would be an example of a negative reinforcer as well. Um, So then we have this two types of learning, right? We have the escape learning and avoidance learning. All right. So with escape learning, guys, you're trying to take away, you're trying to stop this unpleasant stimulus, whatever it is. Maybe you get shocked every time you answer something wrong. You're going to do everything possible to not get shocked, right? So another thing they did, right, was they would shock an animal as it was standing on top of a platform. The only way to escape this shock is to jump off into a pool of water underneath you, right? So once you discover there's nothing you can do except jump off the platform, that's what they're going to do. So again, remember, escape learning, you're trying to stop this unpleasant stimulus like pain, maybe an annoying noise, a really foul smell, right? You're trying to get away from those things. Avoidance learning, um, well, think of this as when you're doing operant conditioning, when you're in the Skinner box. If you see the wrong signal, right, the green light comes on, and every time you press the lever when the green light comes on, you get shocked. What are you going to do? Well, you're not going to press the lever when the green light comes on, right? Um, so remember, that's avoidance learning. You're learning that a signal will come before an unwanted stimulus, so you do what you can to react once you see the signal. All right. So, would this be a positive or a negative reinforcer? Putting on your seatbelt would be positive. Why is it positive? Because you're adding something, right? You're putting on that seat belt. Having a headache and taking an aspirin, again, that would be a negative. You're taking something because you want to take away the negative stimulus, which is the headache. Faking you're being sick to avoid my class, what would that be, guys? Something to think about, right? Anyway, now we're going to talk about punishment. Um, so, punishment is something we do not like as a consequence of our behavior, right? The punishment is made to decrease the chances that you're going to repeat that behavior again, right? Again, so punishment is going to occur after a certain behavior, right? Something we don't like is going to occur after a certain behavior. And we want to learn what that behavior is so we don't repeat it and keep getting punished, right? Now, again, there's going to be a positive punishment and there's going to be a negative punishment. Positive punishment, guys, it's not what it sounds like. It's not going to be pleasant. It could be your dad giving you a spanking after you misbehave. He is giving you a spanking, right? He is giving you something unpleasant. Um, you're in my class, you didn't do your homework, so what am I going to do? I'm going to lecture all day, so you have to hear my annoying voice all day. Think of that as a positive punishment, right? Because I am giving you the sound of my voice for 45 minutes while uh, I'm trying to get you to stop a certain behavior, right? So again, positive punishment, guys, not a good thing. It means we're giving you something, a spanking, um, or maybe, well, I don't know about this, right? Because I just spanked my kids a couple of times and that's it. But you get the thing, right? Anyway, now, negative punishment, this is when we take away something that you like. Now, this is what hurts you guys the most right now. As a negative punishment, uh, whether your parents are thinking of punishing you or they don't know whether they should spank you or give you a negative punishment, the negative punishment is going to work more on you guys because I would tell your parents to take away your phone. That would be death for most of you, right? Why? Because we're taking something that you guys want, your phone, and we're not going to give you access to it until you learn your lesson, right? So a negative punishment, guys, is we're taking something pleasant away from you, right? Your your 5, 6 year old little brother, there is playing outside with his cousins, and then he just pushed his little baby cousin into a puddle of mud and caused her to cry. So, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to put him in timeout, take him away from the fun times he was having with all of his little cousins, and you're going to make him face the corner in the room, right? What did we do? We took away his playtime. That's a negative punishment. Guys, punishment, it works, but it needs to happen immediately after the behavior, right? Especially if we're talking about an animal. Now, you guys, it doesn't need to be immediate. Why? Because you'll know what you did. You might deny it or even lie to yourself saying, no, I didn't do it, but you know you did, right? So a punishment, as long as it's not like a year or two later, it's still going to work on us, right? On your dog, not so much, guys. So you come in and the dog pooped on the floor, but it happened 3 or 4 hours ago. You yelling at that dog for pooping on that floor is not going to work for anything. They're going to think you hate them for some reason. You're angry for them for no reason. But if you catch them pooping on the floor, that's when you need to smack them on the butt or yell at them, bad dog, whatever it is, immediate while they're doing it or immediately after, then they will be able to make a connection, right? Um, right. So punishment, guys, is independent of learning. It is a reinforcer. It helps us learn something quicker, or some of us are stubborn, right? But it is not necessarily uh, learning, but it does help us learn a little bit quicker. All right. So. The reinforcement punishment matrix. What are we talking about here? Well, here, the consequences provide something. It's going to be a positive reinforcer or punishment, right? If the consequence involves taking something away, it's going to be a negative, either a negative reinforcer or a negative punishment, right? Now, are we going to do positive or negative reinforcement, right? Well, what is reinforcement meant to do? Well, it's meant to make the consequence makes the behavior more likely to happen in the future. We want you to behave this way. When we're punishing you, either positively or negatively, it's because we do not want you to behave that way. So a reinforcer, either positive or negative, we want to encourage that same behavior. With a negative or positive punishment, we want to totally put an end to the behavior in question. All right. So um, punishment needs to be given right away and consistently. Uh, so if you're punishing your little 5-year-old every third time he does something incorrectly, he's going to keep doing it. Why? Because you're not going to punish him 2 out of the 3 times that he does it, right? So you need to be consistent about your punishment, right? Consistency is key. Intermittent punishment is far less effective than punishment delivered after every undesirable behavior, right? Uh, just punishing punishing them every now and then for that behavior is not going to get any change in behavior. Why? Because the kids will know they can get away with it the majority of the time, right? So, like if we see here, right, if we don't punish them every time they misbehave, you're kind of rewarding them for misbehaving. One thing we need to keep in mind here is we can see that we need to keep in mind that the learner, right, the person we're trying to teach a certain behavior, not the teacher, decides if something is a reinforcer or a punishment, right? You might think that it's a positive reinforcement to play Pearl Jam when your kid is cleaning his room, but your kid might not like Pearl Jam and decides that's a punishment, right? So it is not up to you, it is up to the kid. You have to know what they like and what they don't like in order for this to be effective, or the dog in question, right? Um, right. Even the pre-MAC principle here tells us that we need to consider what the reinforcers are. They need to want those reinforcers, or at least it's going to be preferable to get those reinforcers than any other thing that might happen, right? Again, like I said, the person decides if that's a punishment or a reinforcer. Why? You might think of taking your kids down to McDonald's as a good thing. They'll love McDonald's. But what if your kid is a vegetarian? They're not going to think it's a very good reward, right? So again, it isn't up to you. It's up to the person that's learning. All right. So let's talk about more about positive versus negative reinforcement. Um, we use them to produce a different behavior than what you're currently getting, right? Punishment um, is only used to stop a certain behavior or at least stop the amount of times that behavior is happening, right? A reinforcer isn't trying to stop anything, it's trying to encourage that behavior. Uh, Again, remember, positive means you're adding something, whether it's a spanking or a treat. Negative means you're taking something away, something they do not like their a basket full of sweaty ass gym socks. If you take it away from them, they'll probably be happy, right? But also, if you take away something that they do not, something, right, as a punishment, that's a negative punishment. Like when I were to take away your phone, That would be a really bad negative punishment for you, right? We're removing something from you. Now, guys, there's a difference between abuse and punishment. When I say I spank my kids once or twice, that's what I mean. Uh, I smacked them on the bottom once. That's it. And if they misbehaved, I did it again. So again, do not confuse punishment with abuse. Abuse does not work, guys. Uh, but punishment will. Uh, Now, if you're trying to use the same punishment on the kid and it doesn't change his behavior, guys, you need to find something else to do. You can't keep spanking that kid. Why? Eventually, they're not gonna listen to you at all because you showed to them that you weren't listening to them by spanking them all the time, even though that didn't change their behavior. Uh, so all that's going to do is going to get them to stop learning and stuff, right? So you need to make sure you administer that punishment immediately after the event. You need to make sure that you're not heavy handed. And, you might have, you guys might have a brother or sister in the house that you think is the favorite. Maybe you're the favorite. Maybe you're the golden child. Uh, if you're going to punish one kid one way, you have to punish the other kid the same way. If I'm going to take a beating, I see my brother gets an ice cream for behaving the same way. I'm going to think everything is BS and I'm going to stop listening to my parents. So, to make punishment work, it needs to be swift. It needs to happen every time, not whenever you feel like it, guys. You can't beat the crap out of your kids. It needs to be very short, very swift punishment, right? And again, don't try to uh, really leave marks on the kid. That would just be abuse, right? We just want them to change their behavior a certain way. We need to target the behavior, not the person, right? If they think it's personal, they're going to stop. They're going to stop listening, guys. So please target the behavior, not the person. You can't make them feel like they're worthless. Punishment should not give a mixed message. In other words, mom and dad can't argue about the punishment because the kid's going to play you off of each other. And really, guys, the most efficient type of punishment is usually negative punishment. You take something away from them that they want. That is what's going to work best. Now, you can't always do this, so sometimes a smack on the bottom, a quick smack on the bottom is what is called for. All right, so we're almost done here. So, how do we actually use operant conditioning? Well, we use it to train our dogs when they want to go potty, so they can go potty outside. We'll train our kids to go to sleep at night, right? How do we do that? Well, we'll come up with our own little sleep ritual, and it'll be something the kid enjoys leading up to it until he falls asleep. Um, in schools, right? We talked about it today. The little gold stars you used to get as elementary students, right? And what are we trying to do when we operantly condition somebody? We're trying to shape their behavior. And we need reinforcers along the way, right? Either positive or negative. You'll get a treat here and there, or get something unpleasant taken away from you as some kind of reward for the change in your behavior. All right, guys. If you have any questions, please write them down and we'll discuss them in class tomorrow.